like an 8x10 glossy picture that Diddy released on his Twitter page, and it was in relation. He was responding to, or I'm sorry, accused General Motors, in particular, of making money from the black community. And the picture says, "We're done letting corporations manipulate our culture into believing incremental progress is acceptable. Is an acceptable action. If you love us, pay us." And here's a letter to corporate America. So Diddy, once this popped up, he started to get roasted by people that are probably our age, if not older, and understand some of the things that we've heard about his quote unquote business practices. I'll read a couple of these comments from people that were on here. There's a young lady named Jessica Fry, and her response was, "Diddy, it starts with us. I was recently approached to host a show for Revolt, and it came without pay. You cannot keep knocking white folks for their disrespect towards minority creators while doing the same thing to each other. I encourage you to be the change that we need." There's another comment that says, from someone named @NoName on Twitter, Diddy about Diddy about 150 million away from being a billionaire. Diddy is shaming white corporations for a capitalist business model he almost completely replicated. Abolish the black capitalist industrial complex with the prayer hands. So people have been pretty much dragging him.
Did you say somebody by the name of
on Twitter
no
for
name?
his comment?
He did.
It says @NoName.
Doesn't know who No Name.
That's who. I don't know who No Name is. They go by No Name.
This dude, man.
So
you're on a hip hop
@NoName
podcast and you don't know who No Name is.
I'm just playing, man. Y'all don't get. Come on, man.
You're not playing. Not playing. You can own up to it.
I don't really.
Okay.
I'll be missing the bars, man.
Maybe it was a Freudian.
Anyway,
Freudian slip or something.
It wasn't
right?
40. Y'all missed the bars. Anyway.
You trying to?
What do y'all think about this, man? Don't do that. Don't do that. What do y'all think about that, man? In terms of, because we know the history. Like, you can talk about what's the group? Jay Moore, no. What's the name of the group that they say he really played? The one came out for a little bit and they disappeared. I'm talking about B5. You remember that?
Pick one.
Oh yeah.
What'd you say, Terry?
Well, I mean, B5. I mean, you got to look. I mean, you could go down the list. I'm not here to defend Puff Daddy, Diddy, Brother Love, but it's like everyone expects. A lot of times they expect black executives to like, just if you sign with a black record label, that he's going to give you $1 per record sold, non-recoupable. Like, that's going to be a sustainable business model for him, who's taking all the risk as the business owner. And perhaps if we were getting the lion's share of the or just the proportional to the amount of money we spend with these corporations, if they were spending it on advertisement with black outlets, then Diddy would be able to pay people who come into, he'd be able to be, as far as the hosting situation is concerned. I understand why creators and people who are asked to be on his airwaves would feel some kind of way about, like, oh yeah, just come on and we're not going to be able to pay you, because that's not how other outlets take care of business. But other outlets are getting proportionately what they're supposed to get from Fortune 500 companies as far as advertising, and that's really where the disconnect is. Like, I'm not saying either is right, but I am saying there is and you can say, oh, well, Diddy's almost a billionaire. The reason he's a billionaire is because, like, he's not out here just paying people when there's nothing on the back end for him to recoup. Like, I'm not mad at that part of it as far as Diddy is concerned. Everybody wants to say that, it's easy to point at the guy who almost has $1 billion and say, hey, why don't you do this? But then there are companies that have billions of dollars and they do not break bread with black outlets. Like, they'll spend all this money, say at an iHeart or an Emmis, and sure, they'll spend the money when it comes to spending it, put it on the Breakfast Club or whatever, or Hot 97 or whatever, particular outlet that caters towards black people. But at the same time, when it's time to break bread with Radio One, which is run by a black woman, and it has then for some reason, all of a sudden the money is dried up, and it's not there's not that same investment. So it's multi-layered. I know everyone thinks they get on Twitter and they're owning somebody by saying something that they think is woke or whatever. And look, there's a lot of layers to it. And I know Diddy is an easy target because they'd be like, well, why are your artists broke? It's like, look, at the end of the, because somebody tried to be like, well, why, what's wrong? Why you ain't taking care of Black Rob? Black Rob is a grown man at the end of the day. It's not for Diddy to take care of grown men and grown women who have made
album, by the way,
poor decisions somewhere along the line. Of course, this is when you're talking about record companies, you're talking about capitalism, everything is transactional. When you are no longer doing anything for me, a lot of times you're not going to have anything done for you. So I just think it's multi-layered. It's not as easy as somebody can make in I don't know if it's 140 characters. I don't know how many Twitter characters are on Twitter anymore. I know they changed.
My Twitter game ain't high as it used to be, so don't get me lying about the
while I understand where Diddy is coming from, he's running a business at Revolt. And if he looks at the balance sheet and it says, look, I can put you on the air, but because I'm not getting the money from these advertisements, I can only pay you this much, so if you really are about this fight and that black people are buying this many Escalades a year, then General Motors needs to come off that money and make sure that like those Escalade commercials wind up on Revolt. And then I can start paying these creators the way they need to be paid, because the influence of our market value and what we spend is being reflected in what the advertising is.
Diff, jump in there, man. What do you think about people roasting him based off that comment in the 8x10 glossy?
I mean, Diddy he's an easy target when it comes to this type shit. I even talked about it when during the election. He finds something to latch on to, but the whole thing with me is consistency. Remain consistent. I'm saying get with something and follow through versus just making a statement or a blanket statement and not helping assist the actual action of it. You know what I'm saying? That's where I am with Diddy, because I mean as a businessman, he's a great businessman, but his reputation is tarnished based on people that he's done business with, those being the artists that he has. I mean, because you don't have any artists that Diddy came up with that are still riding with him or still under the Bad Boy imprint. Like, is Bad Boy even still active? I haven't heard of an artist on Bad Boy in so long that it's hard to even know if it's still an active label,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, every artist that was on his label has either passed away or have gone through very bad consequences in life, ended up turning to God. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, you see something that makes you, make a complete 180.
She was alone there for a second.
There's probably something there. I don't know, man. I think what Diddy needs to do, especially being so close to being a billionaire, rather than vocalizing everything, he needs to be trying to figure out how to sit on these boards, because I mean, that's what the rich people do. When you have paper like that, you're able to sit on many boards if you really want to make something happen, so to speak. So I'm with more of the action versus the hopping on Twitter, trying to get people riled up, because it doesn't help you in the long run. A lot of people on Twitter would never touch the type of paper that you have. They can't relate to you, but they try to tell you what you should and shouldn't do with your money. Same thing with like this whole DMX, rest in peace him, by the way, talking about Jay-Z is buying his masters. Like, I mean, that wasn't even an actual factual, but you see how people jumped on that immediately.
Yeah.
Well, he can't buy his masters. Kanye got more money than him. But y'all are arguing over people's money who you don't even have. You can't even touch. You don't know what these people got.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so that's what I'm saying. Twitter and social media isn't necessarily the place to air it out unless you've already made an initiative to try to do something. It didn't go through, or they're pretty much pushing you to the side. Then yeah, I think air them out at that time.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think you should probably pump your brakes. So I know a lot of people that work at GM or worked and retired from GM that are black and hold good positions there. So I don't know what's going on the other side of the game that he's talking about. But from my point of view, I see a little bit different. So I want to get some clarity on that.
I'm not mad at that. Lone, you have any thoughts on the glossy?
I don't know what the glossy is because I wasn't paying attention, but I will say that I get the point. Like, I get your guys' point with everything, and I think this is like twofold. And Jay Moore briefly mentioned it when he talked about capitalism, right? Because, and I think No Name, her comment based on this was in reference to what Diddy shaming white capitalists for essentially doing the same thing, right? It's like trying to play.
She said abolish
game.
the black capitalist. Abolish the black capitalist industrial complex is what she said.
Right. Which, you know, I mean,
repeating it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if we're thinking, you know, we've talked about this a little bit with Jay-Z in the past too, right? You know, he's playing the game of the wealthy white, like when we talk about wealth, right? We're talking about generational wealth. So he's dipping into that game. Diddy's in that as well, obviously. Kanye had his complaints throughout the years as well, like put me on the board, Adidas, you know, like all that stuff. I actually agree with No Name on this in the sense that the mind frame around it is, I guess it just depends on where we're coming from, right? So if I can understand like where Diddy is coming from on one hand. From having a small seat at the table in that sense, right? But at the same time, he is playing this other game, and he's nearly a billionaire, and he's playing the game of capitalism. And regardless of if it's a black person or a white person, you know, I don't really think there should be billionaires. So
I've heard you say that before. Yep, I have.
You know, and I don't know. So it's like this weird. I'm kind of torn a little bit because I see what she's saying and I see what he's saying. I think they're both right, but it's just kind of weird to like try to advocate to get people on your side, like Diddy's doing. Like, I don't know, like help me become a billionaire too is like kind of what he's saying. It seems like, I don't know. And, you know, at the same time, like a lot of his artists, like he doesn't have the greatest track record for like, does he have the greatest track record for supporting the artists that he's brought up and that he's been quote unquote, I don't want to say responsible for, because I don't think anybody's responsible for anybody in the music industry. Right. But
nobody's still riding with him.
Man, that's tough.
Who is?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. So, I mean, he hasn't really looked out for his artists like that. I mean, the Lox had decades of issues with him, right, over his name, and obviously that there's legal stuff around that.
Let's go pull up the interview with Angie Martinez when Ada and Styles was in the studio. That's all the reference you need.
Yeah. So I know I'm rambling. I'm rambling right now, so I'm gonna stop. But I don't know. I'm split because I agree with what No Name is saying. Like if from where I come from and where I stand on stuff like that. But I understand Diddy's frustration as well with, you know, feeling like he's in the game, but he's not, doesn't have a larger share of it, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of.
Well, you know, because everyone wants to always say, well, you know, Diddy didn't do, you know, right by his artist, this, that, and the third. But, you know, when you really look at the track record, when artists decided, okay, I don't want to be on Bad Boy anymore, and then they go to some other company, they usually never do better, because when you're on Bad Boy, and they're focused on you. And then when you get to, you know, Capitol, you realize, oh, now I'm being handled by the black music division of Capitol, or I'm handled by the black.
Locks did better once they moved on.
Did they?
Yeah,
I'd say so. When they got with Rough Riders, I think they did better than they did.
I would agree with that.
They was riding the wave of Biggie still.
No, because the thing is, when they got over there, like, okay, Biggie's gone, so okay, and DMX and Eve are hot. Let's get away from Bad Boy because that's not hot anymore. And then they got over to We Are the Streets, and the numbers weren't really any better than the Locks album that was on Bad Boy.
It was a better album.
It was a better album, but this is the thing: when you decide to negotiate your way out of a contract that you signed, and this is the thing. This is a lesson for every artist who may be listening or somebody who's thinking about getting into the music industry. You know, if you sign a record label, if you sign to a record label and you decide you don't want to be there anymore, and you have a lawyer negotiate your way out, you don't get to just leave clean. Okay, there's something that you have to leave.
Dr. Dre will tell you that.
Exactly. So,
but it doesn't make it less predatory.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it less predatory. But at the same time, like, I don't want to say I don't feel sorry for artists who sign bad deals, but like, how many times do we have to hear the story of New Edition? How many times we have to hear the story of NWA? How many times we have to hear the story of the Backstreet Boys? And then does nobody ever learn the lesson of having somebody look over the paperwork?
Because it's basically the allure of the game. I mean, if you're already broke, you have this opportunity, or not even necessarily broke. You getting street money. You trying to clean your shit up. Getting that deal in itself is hitting the lottery for you. So you gon' glance over some shit and just be like, all right, let's get this shit signed. I understand how that happens. Now, people aren't the greatest businessmen or business women when it comes to that type shit, unfortunately. But I mean, it happens. It doesn't happen as much now because people are educated on what's going on. Because I'll tell you firsthand, I thought once you got a record deal, when I was young, once you got a record deal, you was rich. That's just what I thought.
Yeah, right.
In the beginning, and know anything about well, you got to pay for this, you got to pay for that, and I'm sure they're in the same boat. I can only imagine if one of us got a record deal, either in high school or fresh out of high school, that we're thinking about trying to find an attorney to make sure this shit is right.
You got to think about also there are examples of to your point, we've all seen the story. Jim Moore listed a whole bunch of stories that we've heard about, horror stories. I think as he was talking, Terry also said TLC, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So we've seen a lot of those stories. There are, for all of those stories, you do get a Master P, you do get an E40 that kind of gave us an example of, okay, come out the gate independent and take care of your own business and really grind. There is a chance for you to be successful also. Those were few and far in between because clearly we got a longer list.
Those are cats that had bread. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely had bread.
So when you're in a situation to where you have money already, you're thinking on a different level. Same thing with like a Jay-Z. He didn't come in the game with, I just want to make a rap album. He came with, I want to make a company. I want to make a rap label. That's the way they structured their deal. It wasn't just, I'm signing myself or y'all are signing me. No, you're signing me and my company, and this is how we gonna do this shit. There's a difference there. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you, but could I play devil's advocate and say, okay, when you sign the deal, there's not necessarily a rule that says, you have to spend all the money that you get for this. Like there are some people that have signed record deals, but we're smart enough to be like, yo, I'm about to go out here and do a lot of this stuff on my own with the promotion and stuff, and do extra things outside of what my contract says to help me gain more money, outside of what the structure of the contract is. Like
because they had the knowledge. Because they had the knowledge of understanding what everything was, right? So they were aware of how predatory everything really was. Just from somebody
I feel what Terry's saying though. I feel what he's saying.
I mean, from my standpoint, and the reason why I have a hard time agreeing with Diddy on this and in general is just like, I mean, I'm not like $150 million away from $1 billion or anything, but I've started stuff from the ground up. and I've built things, and I run a record label, and it's independent, and I've booked shows, and I've paid everybody at every show I've ever had, and the artists on the label that put music out get over 80% splits on everything, if not higher. So it's hard for me to, as somebody that doesn't make a lot of money from it but still enjoys it, like to just agree with any of it. It's just again, it goes against my maybe it's because I have morals and shit. I don't know.
Morals
I
and
don't.
shit, man.
Ding, 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 ding. Morals and shit. Yes.
Put
That's a
that,
Terry
I mean,
quote.
we
That
also
on the
know.
shirt. We also know that when you start messing with, I mean, and like I said, there's only like what at this point 5 or 6 actual record companies in the entire world. I mean, you can have an imprint, you can have a boutique label, but there's really only
There's
4
three.
or 5.
There's
Yeah,
3 big
that
ones.
actually
Yeah.
distribute your records to major outlets. There's only like 5 or 6 companies that own every media outlet in the entire world. So and when you have a clear understanding, and this is for any artist that's listening, say you do sign to Warner, and okay, they take you out to dinner and they put you up in a hotel. All this stuff is on your tab. These are called recoupable expenses. And you're not just out here living the life. When they give you money, they expect all of it back and then some. And so, you know, what you negotiate as a royalty, how much you're supposed to get per record, you might get the short end of the stick on the first record, but it's your team and your lawyer and your manager. It's up to them to go in there and renegotiate based on what you've been able to bring to the table going forward. You know, just like, you know, if you're a professional athlete and you outperform your contract, like I'm never mad at when these dudes go back and try to hold out and they try to get more money per year, because you know what? If you didn't perform to your contract, they would cut you at any given time. And it's the same thing with a record label, because they will, if you are slated to sell 500,000, which honestly is not even a realistic thing anymore, and you sell only 250, they can be like, all right, we're going to cut our losses. You're just a tax write-off for us, and you can get out of here, and you're not going to get any more chance to get in the studio, and whatever money that you owe us, you still owe us. You know, that's the. Look, I'm not saying I don't understand when people are upset at Diddy, but at the same time, when you look at the paperwork and you see what it is, you can only be so mad. These people sign these paperwork, and you got to understand, you spend $500,000 on a video. All right, you have a P&D deal. Every jewel case, every piece of vinyl that's sent out, it's not Diddy's. He's not going to pay for that. That's a part of your contract. You know, and like I said, I'm going back to the 90s when I talk about, you know, the vinyl.
You're going way back.
I was about to say.
I was a part of a record pool, and I just remember, okay, we would get, you know, 60 pieces of vinyl for, you know, because you had to have doubles. You know, you got to understand, if you're an artist and your company is sending out 60 pieces of vinyl, you pay for the pressing and distribution of all 60 pieces. Now multiply that by a record pool in every major city in America, and then also all the records that are in the store. Like, I understand people think they should be rich just because they're on TV, but it doesn't work that way.
The goal of a record label is to make
the game.
A record company is nothing more than a bank. And
the goal is to make money.
You got to look at it like this. They gave you a loan, and you got to pay back that loan.
The goal is to make bread.
The problem with Diddy, though, even with contracts, he does not have any artists still that is riding with him at the end of the day. So I mean, he broke all of these great artists. I mean, he of course, God rest his soul. Craig Mack, God rest his soul. Loon. What's his name? Black Rob. Little. Name Thomas.
Carl Thomas.
All these people. The band. Identity Kane. Everybody from the
naming them in the chat.
They all made great. They all came out swinging. They all made great albums. Their first albums was good. I'm saying, but then after that, there was really nothing else. Everything fizzled. It was based on pretty much bad contracts or not fulfilling certain things. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just his track record. When you're talking about Diddy and wanting another company to provide opportunities, minorities or black people, you had the opportunity to do that yourself, and somehow it fell through the cracks, and it didn't necessarily manifest like it should have, or it hasn't been correct. Hell, I forgot to say Mace. You know what I'm saying? But Mace he backed out on his own terms. But I mean, still the story is the same.
And I see
everybody that he worked with, they don't have any equity in Bad Boy right now anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you got to look at it like, even when you talk about Mace, you know, after his first album, he blew up, you know, did huge numbers. You know, Diddy gave him a $12 million advance, and then he decided to go preach the word. You can understand, you know, Diddy lost $12 million on Mace.
That's why that was on him. Mace,
you know, and then you talk about 112, you know, they recouped on their album. Like, they eventually recouped on their albums, and, you know, they didn't go back and renegotiate. And then they said, okay, we want to be on Def Jam. They went on Def Jam, and then they went from being platinum artists to being gold artists, and it didn't go any better. Faith Evans, same thing. She was a platinum artist on Bad Boy. Right. She went over to Capitol, and she wound up being the black. They put her in the black music division, and she was never.
But then you have New Edition. Edition signed a deal with Bad Boy, had one album. LMG signed a deal with Bad Boy, had one album.
Yeah.
But also, this is the part of the story they never tell. Bad Boy bought New Edition out of all the record company that they had with MCA. All that bad debt they had with MCA, Diddy paid that. And then did it work out at Bad Boy? But you got to understand, they had been in a 20-year bad contract with MCA. And Diddy made all that go away.
That deal was trash. So for him to eat that debt, to his point, that's actually a good look for him to eat that up. And
Diddy has lost more. Diddy, if you really look at the paperwork, Diddy has lost more money on all these artists that everybody says, oh, he should have done better by. He's lost money on all these people.
I don't know if he lost money on I Love. He may have lost money on Edition, but him making it to that Billy like that.
He didn't lose money.
A lot of that is from this artist money.
Like,
a lot of
the one thing we're not talking
about. Sean John.
One of the thing we're not talking about is how inflated these contracts are. Now, regardless of if Diddy is playing along with the rest of the record label companies out there with what he's doing, if an artist is paying for all their stuff, like we know that they were back in the day, and after they pay for all their stuff, they're still getting a 10 to 15% split. There's no reason for 75 to 85% of that to go towards other entities if the original money is still being pulled out of what you're making as part of your contract. Like, so my point will continually go back to, it is predatory behavior, period, from Diddy or from any executive at this point in time. Every major label is the same way, and Diddy is no exception to that. And it's weird for him to try. I don't know. I haven't really seen what he's. I don't know. It's hard for me to feel any type of sensitive.
So you got the unique,
emotional to any type of billionaire guy that's made money off of artists for so long.
I ain't gonna lie. I really like Diddy, man.
Yeah,
I would work for Diddy if Diddy had a position open. I'd go soak up some game. You know what I'm saying?
He definitely got the game.
Yeah, I mean, he knows.
Jay Moore said, "Yeah, but he ain't gonna pay you."
He probably won't.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure to join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. And we invite you to join our hip hop community on Discord. Access it by going to newoldheads.com/community for talks on hip hop, sports, music, news, and everything else.